Guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the state of New York and Governor Kathy Hochul as she expands her lead in the governor's race in a hypothetical matchup against Representative Elise Stefanik from upstate New York, who's expected to run against Governor Hochul in the November midterms this upcoming next November. Now, Kathy Hochul's lead over Elise Stefanik might make sense if you were to look at it from the perspective of New York being a blue state. Blue state governor leads in re-election bid. In other news, water is wet and the sky is blue. But seriously speaking, in New York, this is something that is actually quite an improvement for Kathy Hochul and really goes to show that maybe that opportunity for the Republican Party where they felt as if they were tapping into some type of agitation and anger with the Democratic Party establishment and base that they might be able to win in New York seems to be a moment that has come and gone in this state as Democrats seem to be rebounding not only on the New York statewide level, but also on a more localized level, with Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race, Kathy Hochul now expanding her approval rating as well as her electoral odds. The 2026 races in New York are looking far better for Democrats than they did in the 2022 midterms, and that ultimately is attributed to a combination of factors. Now, given the context around Kathy Hochul, why is this even a race that we are talking about? We don't talk about the North Dakota governor's race for many reasons. But in New York, even though it is a state that routinely does vote for the Democratic Party, it has come into question after the past two election cycles, when in 2024, Kamala Harris defeated Donald Trump in the state by just 14 percentage points, after in 2020, Joe Biden won this state by a significantly higher amount against Donald Trump by a margin of 23 points, after Hillary Clinton won the state by 23 as well, and Obama did so by 28 against Mitt Romney. So thinking about a 14-point margin of victory for Kamala Harris, it was far from impressive for the Democratic Party. They looked at this result and they said this is cataclysmic for their future in New York because what it was nearly a 10-point swing to the right from one election to the other. That if replicated by 2028, New York would become the next battleground state, and a state that Democrats previously were able to rely on consistently might not be that direction. And it wasn't 2024 that actually woke up Democrats for the first time. It was the 2022 midterms when Kathy Hochul, who elevated herself into this position, not necessarily elevated herself, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's now running for mayor of New York City, resigned amidst all the sexual harassment allegations that had come forth before his office. Kathy Hochul was the lieutenant governor at the time. She had been in Congress, went alongside Andrew Cuomo in the past. This time, she was the nominee for governor because she was the incumbent governor, as the line of succession indicates in the New York Constitution. In November of 2022, she ended up winning by just 6 points in a state that Biden won again by 23, and Kamala Harris would go on to win by 14. So 2022 was quite a rough year for the Democratic Party, specifically in New York and obviously in other parts of the country. But this state in particular was far closer than many others. In the governor's race in 22, New York stuck out like a sore thumb because Democrats were doing well in a multitude of other governor races. In Pennsylvania, they were winning by 15. In Michigan, they were winning by 11. In Kansas, they were winning by 2. In Wisconsin, they were winning by 3. In Maine, they were winning by 13. In Minnesota, they were winning by 8. Even in Arizona, a state that Donald Trump would go on to win 2 years later by 6 points, went to Katie Hobbs against Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate. But Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate, Representative Lee Zeldin, in 2022, came within 6.5 points of victory in that election cycle. Absolutely, very bad for the Democratic Party, and it translated to massive losses on the House level. Democrats got just 15 seats out of the total number of 11 in 2020. Democrats had 19 seats to the Republicans' 8, and in 2024, Democrats maintained 19 seats, but Republicans dropped by 1. And it was that 2022 cycle where Republicans really saw massive improvements across the state of New York that really propelled them into victory. Without New York, the House of Representatives majority for the GOP would have just been a singular seat. New York paved the pathway for Mike Johnson to hold on to the speakership in 2024, and looking at what it looks like in 2026 is that Kathy Hochul will be in a very good position based off the data that we are seeing. And a lot of this has to do with the energy that Kathy Hochul has been putting out as of late. A big reason why Kathy Hochul's numbers weren't doing so well in the very beginning was largely based on the way not just independents and Republicans viewed her, but also Democrats. In June of 2024, they asked questions to the same group of people here asking, does Kathy Hochul work hard for the people of New York? And just 60% of Democrats responded that she does so. Of those who say she demonstrates both honesty and integrity, just 54% of Democrats and just 51% of Democrats said that Kathy Hochul provided New Yorkers with decisive leadership. Now, obviously, those numbers are a lot better. That 54 now is a 68, the 60 is a 70, and the 51 is a 61, and the numbers are climbing. And that is the big deal here for Kathy Hochul that puts her in a really good position in this general election. Because Kathy Hochul expanded this early lead over Elise Stefanik largely because it was Democrats coming back home and independents who wanted to see something more from the governor in opposition to Donald Trump and presenting a pathway forward for the state that was different than what she had put forth in the past. Looking at this lead here, it's a massive gain where now Kathy Hochul went from 68% support of Democrats to 75%. Obviously, still room for improvement. There's always room for improvement in a state that Joe Biden outperformed you by over, 15 points. But thinking about where you are when it comes down to this upcoming cycle, she started at a point where she was actually polling not so well against Elise Stefanik. She was not in a great position, and Stefanik's support has gone down amongst Republicans and independents who a month ago leaned towards Stefanik, the Republican hypothetical nominee for governor. Now back Kathy Hochul by a massive, massive amount, by nearly 20 points across the state. And so a lot of this really does have to do with the fact that Hochul was winning back traditional Democratic groups that in some cases abandoned her in 2022 and even abandoned Kamala Harris in the 2024 cycle. Thinking about what she's doing and what the margins are amongst white voters, Kathy Hochul leads 46 to 35. Latino voters, 65 to 19. Black voters, 73 to 6. These are numbers that suggest that Hochul is bringing back the traditional Democratic base. And this isn't to say that she's in a strong enough position that she would win in a swing state. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying. But New York is a Democratic state that has been shockingly more competitive as of late, and Elise Stefanik is walking it back towards the left. And as a state that trend lines do actually suggest that Republicans, looking at the trend line, let's compare 2018 versus 2022. New York State got 17 points more Republican than it was in 2018. Between 2020 and 2024, we can actually compare that too. 2020 to 2024, New York became 11 points more Republican practically overnight. Because from 2016 to 2020, New York got bluer. And from 2020 to 2024, that's when it really swung towards the GOP, and they felt like they had an opening. They felt like they had one with Elise Stefanik in this general election because the hypothetical data had suggested that against somebody else, voters would abandon Kathy Hochul. At the height of this back in April of 2025, Gray House polling found that 61% of New York State residents wanted somebody else compared to Kathy Hochul. Today, those numbers drop to 51% and her highest approval rating since January of 2024, with the numbers only growing. The opposition to Hochul is changing. And taking a look at what the data said against Elise Stefanik in June, that Kathy Hochul would win by 23 points. Then what was it? This time around in the most recent August survey, it narrowed quite a bit that she would win by only 14 points. But now it's expanding because voters are changing their minds about Kathy Hochul. She's embracing this pushback against Donald Trump and this fight for Democrats across the country. Much like how Newsom is rising in stock in the 2028 conversation because of the way he's approaching politics, approaching gerrymandering, approaching pushing back against the Republican Party, Kathy Hochul is doing it too. She hosted the Texas Democrats, who denied quorum in the Texas State House to block the gerrymandered map until a second session was called. She had done all of these different things where she has now said that she will be a firm opponent to Donald Trump, whether it is congestion pricing down to the redrawing of state boundaries or state and local boundaries. But in her most recent move, a very big one, endorsed Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race as one of the few statewide Democrats to do so with prime notability in the state. Senator Chuck Schumer has yet to make an endorsement. Leader Hakeem Jeffries has yet to make an endorsement. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has yet to make an endorsement. Kristen Gillibrand. I don't know why I said Kirsten. Thinking Kirsten Sinema. Thinking about maybe the lack of endorsement, we'll move on. But thinking about this endorsement from Kathy Hochul and why she's going to bat for Mamdani is because she realizes, and I'm sure this is all about politics and 2026 and it being right around the corner, quite frankly, that Kathy Hochul, with or without an endorsement, Mamdani was going to win. And that's what the whole thesis of my video was just a few days ago, talking about Democrats climbing aboard, the Mamdani train. Like we're at the MTA, right? This is the whole point here, that everybody sees the direction that it's going. And the New York City election is going Mamdani. He steamrolled in the primary, outperformed expectations, is being outspent now, still is maintaining his popularity, improving it every single data point that we see. And so either these Democrats get alongside with him, or it will be forever remembered that he won without them. Kathy Hochul wasn't going to let that slide. She wasn't going to let her Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, who served in Congress, who is now going on to challenge her in a primary because there is that opposition to Hochul, because he sees that there are voters out there that say, wait a second, I don't want Kathy Hochul in office, so I might choose the Democrat. She sees that it is moments like these that become very defining for her candidacy, become very important for the way that her base and her legions of voters that would come out in full force for her if they felt compelled to do so, and how they see her and what calculus they are making when they see choices like this. And the endorsement from Mamdani, as much as it may not change the cards for Mamdani, who's already on track for a massive victory, though I do think it provides that, boost ever so slightly of some of those disaffected Democrats that saw people like Kathy Hochul and said, if she's holding out, maybe I should too. The broad strokes takeaway on the New York City mayoral race, she's not saving Mamdani. If anything, this endorsement helps her. And if anything, what we have seen as of late is that Kathy Hochul's time in office has gone from being what many Democrats have seen as not so great for them, as not capitalizing on the supermajorities that Democrats have in the legislature, to now being one of the most defining governorships on the Democratic side and a standard in a playbook on how to push back against the incumbent president. And that is what I think matters to a lot of these voters here. And that's where I think you find that Kathy Hochul, as a blue state governor, should be winning re-election easily. But this race actually wasn't as locked in as it might have been. But now, it's trending that direction. And Elise Stefanik, who looks like she still wants to go for this position, says it's not a question of when, of if, but it is a question of when, is likely going to lose this GOP primary lose this race against Kathy Hochul. And the data looks increasingly better and better for Democrats in New York. And it looks like, based off the recent moves that Kathy Hochul is doing, it's no shock that she's doing better overall. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 governor election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.